Hey everybody, Aaron Rift here from NoDQ.com to give you my thoughts on the WWE Hall of Fame. We have the 2015 Hall of Fame coming up this Saturday in San Jose. I will be there for that, and this will be my first Hall of Fame attending in person. I figured since I'm going to this Hall of Fame, I would look back at the other Hall of Fames and analyze the entire WWE Hall of Fame. Look at the best moments and the worst moments. I went through literally every single Hall of Fame ceremony, and here are my thoughts. First off, I think Andre the Giant going into the Hall of Fame as the very first inductee, he is very fitting. Andre the Giant, arguably the most recognizable professional wrestler of all time next to Hulk Hogan and Steve Austin, and some would say Andre is number one in that regard. Andre the Giant was one of a kind, and WWE was inspired to start a Hall of Fame because of Andre the Giant's untimely death, and they aired a video package on Raw. There was no ceremony, they just aired the video package, and that was what kicked off the Hall of Fame. For the next 3 years, 1994, 1995, and 1996, there were ceremonies with various legends being inducted. Back then, WWE did not intend for these segments to be viewed on television, so there's only a limited amount of footage available. What WWE did is they had Renee Young and Gene Okerlund go into the WWE studio and produce Hall of Fame segments from those years, them talking about the inductees and then showing whatever footage was available. Those are available on the WWE Network. It's hard to say how good those induction speeches were, since a lot of them were only a few minutes long and a lot of them are missing. But of the early Hall of Fame induction segments, I really enjoyed Captain Lou Albano's speech from 1996. I mean, he was just entertaining as hell, and he really set the bar for future Hall of Fame speeches. I mean, he was just tremendous. And a lot of these early inductees were very worthy. I mean, you had mainly WWF stars, and back then WWE did not own all the tape libraries that they have today, so they strictly focused on guys from the 70s, early 80s WWF era. But there's so many deserving people that went in during this period. The Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, Pedro Morales, Classy Freddie Blassie, Gorilla Monsoon, and so on. These guys all very deserving to go into the Hall of Fame. So you could definitely check out these old segments, and it's interesting to watch how the Hall of Fame evolved. It started off just in banquet rooms, hotel Marriotts, and then it would eventually end up in 20,000 seat arenas. So moving on here to the main period of the Hall of Fame ceremonies. After 1996, it went on hiatus, and then it was brought back in 2004. And in 2004, they still had it in a banquet hall, but they had much higher production values. The entire thing was recorded, and I think WWE ended up putting it on the WrestleMania 20 DVD as the third disc. So by this point, they were taking the Hall of Fame very seriously and turning it into a major production. Looking at the 2004 Hall of Fame, very deserving people going in. Many of them superstars from the late 70s, early 80s. Don Morocco, Greg Valentine. The speeches that I really enjoyed the most, of course, Bobby the Brain Heenan. That is definitely a must-see Hall of Fame speech, as well as Jesse the Body Ventura. Jesse is just a great public speaker. He has a lot of experience, and he came off really well. With some of these induction speeches, some of these guys, they only say a few things, and they're not really used to speaking in front of large crowds and just talking about their careers. But Jesse Ventura was really well spoken, and Bobby Heenan, just very heartfelt, a very heartfelt speech that he gave to everybody. So 2004 ceremony, definitely worth checking out. 2005 was one of my favorites. I did not go to that, even though it was in Los Angeles. You had Hulk Hogan going into the Hall of Fame, and arguably the biggest box office draw in wrestling history. His speech was very good. Roddy Piper. I really liked the theme of the 2005 Hall of Fame. The WrestleMania 1 alumni going in. You know, Piper, all the guys that competed in the main event, Cowboy Bob Orton, Mr. Wonderful, Jimmy Hart. All these speeches were entertaining. Overall, from top to bottom, and who could forget the Iron Sheik? Iron Sheik's speech was just absolutely hilarious. So I really enjoyed this Hall of Fame ceremony, and this was the first one to be held in a somewhat large venue, the Gibson Amphitheater in Studio City, California. About a 5,000 seat venue. This was the first time that WWE held the Hall of Fame in a large venue compared to what they were doing in the past. And moving on here, we have the 2006 Hall of Fame. Another good ceremony. Bret Hart being the headliner. Very shocking because nobody expected Bret Hart to come back to WWE in any capacity, but he did accept the Hall of Fame induction, and that would eventually lead to him making his full-time comeback, well, not as a wrestler, but coming back as a personality in WWE and getting involved in storylines again. You had Eddie Guerrero, who unfortunately had passed away a few months earlier, Mean Gene Okerlund, Sensational Sherry. Sherry's speech is something else. You definitely have to check that out. I mean, I don't know what she was on, but she was just really entertaining. I would definitely recommend her speech. Moving on to 2007, Dusty Rhodes was the headliner. His speech I enjoyed a lot. Anytime Dusty Rhodes got up there, whether to do his own speech or to induct somebody else, Dusty Rhodes always told good stories and was just entertaining. Looking on here, Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig, Jerry Lawler, Nick Bockwinkel, the original Sheik, Jim Ross. I mean, this was a very strong class also. JR's speech was very entertaining. I would recommend that one. Next up, we have the 2008 Hall of Fame ceremony. This one, I feel, is probably the most memorable Hall of Fame ceremony that WWE ever produced. This was the first one shot in HD. This was, of course, Ric Flair's big induction speech. And the thing about this Hall of Fame is it went really long. I mean, these guys were out there talking for seemingly forever. First, you had The Rock come out to induct his father and his grandfather, and he was just out there talking forever. He was making jokes. He was ripping into John Cena, which was great. But yeah, it went on, I think, maybe 45 minutes to an hour between The Rock talking and inducting Rocky Johnson and Peter Maivia. It just went on a very long time. And then Ric Flair's speech. Ric Flair literally mentioned just about every single person he ever worked a program with. But, Ric Flair is Ric Flair, and it was probably about as entertaining a 1 hour segment as you can get. I mean, Ric Flair, not only can he wrestle for an hour, but he can talk for an hour and keep people entertained. 2008 Hall of Fame is definitely a must-see. Moving on here to 2009, this was really disappointing. What happened was after 2008 and the fact that the speeches went on for so long, WWE made a decision to have time limits, and guys were only allowed to go out there and talk. I believe it was 5 to 10 minutes. From what several people said that attended the show, that WWE actually had a timer out there, and people had to finish up their speech within a 5-minute period, and some of them went over. But by this point, also, it felt like WWE was starting to get a little bit desperate, maybe digging down in the barrel a little too deep when it comes to bringing in people for the Hall of Fame. Some questionable people going into the Hall of Fame. This was the year that Coco Beware went into the WWE Hall of Fame. And to me, I mean, Coco Beware had a very solid run. He did well in Memphis, and then he went on to WWE and was a fairly memorable mid-card act. But was he really the top tier? Was he really the best of the best? that is very much debatable. When it comes to the headliners, Ricky Steamboat had a good speech, and of course you had Ric Flair out there, so that was great. You had Steve Austin as the headliner, and to me this was really a major disappointment. Steve Austin went out there and he talked maybe 10 minutes at the most, and it just felt to me like he could have said so much more, and I guess he just wanted to go along with WWE's wishes to have short speeches. But I would have liked to have heard more from Steve Austin and have him open up and talk more about his career in detail, but it didn't happen. So 2009 overall, I thought was pretty disappointing. And then 2010 was, in my opinion, probably the worst Hall of Fame ceremony. You had Ted DiBiase as the headliner, and let's be clear here. I think Ted DiBiase should definitely be a WWE Hall of Famer. He absolutely deserves it, but to be the headliner, not so sure about that. But the thing is, this was the year that they really tried to get the Ultimate Warrior into the Hall of Fame because it was in Phoenix, but Ultimate Warrior turned it down, and things just didn't work out. So DiBiase was the headliner. And some of these other inductees, you could very well say they are deserving. You had Antonio Inoki, an all-time legend, going in, but he didn't speak English very well, and it was a little bit awkward, him coming out there and doing an induction speech. Very weird seeing Stan Hansen out there. Very rare to see him in any kind of WWE environment. You had Wendy Richter going in, and yes, she was part of the Rock and Wrestling era, but after that, her existence was pretty much ignored by WWE for decades. You had Roddy Piper inducting her, and I don't know what was going on with Piper here. I don't know if he was drunk or what, but he came out there, and it was just very awkward with him being out there. I would watch that segment. I would recommend that segment just because Piper is just so out there with his speech from Wendy Richter, and he wasn't even talking about her for most of the time. He was just rambling about various things. And then you had Mad Dog Vachon going in, another all-time wrestling legend. But unfortunately, when he came out there, he really, his age and everything, he just came out there and was just stumbling around. And Pat Patterson was out there trying to help him with the speech, but wasn't very good speech at all. So overall, this was a very disappointing Hall of Fame ceremony. You did have Gorgeous George going in and Stu Hart going in. So you definitely had some deserving candidates, but the speeches just weren't all that memorable. And once again, with the time limits and everything, just wasn't as good as some of the earlier ones. Moving on here to the 2011 Hall of Fame ceremony. To me, this is when it started picking up. Guys were given more time with their speeches. Shawn Michaels was the headliner. And he had a great speech, and at the end you had the little DX reunion. That was a cool moment. Jim Duggan going in, Sunny going in, which is funny considering the things that have gone on with her after that Hall of Fame induction. Abdullah the Butcher, who I think is very deserving to go into the Hall of Fame, but his speech, when he came out there, it was pretty obvious why the guy never talked. But overall, I thought that this was a very good class of 2011. And then moving on here to 2012, this one was very good. Edge's speech I thought was tremendous. This was a year after his final match and his retirement. Edge's speech was one of the most memorable Hall of Fame speeches. And Ron Simmons had a really good speech as well. I enjoyed his. Yokozuna going in, definitely deserving. And then moving on here, I forgot to mention the Four Horsemen going in 2012. So with Ric Flair out there, all the Horsemen were great. And, this was another memorable Hall of Fame speech. This was when Flair was still with TNA, actually, so it was interesting for him to be part of this ceremony when he was still working for a rival wrestling company. And, of course, this was, the first time somebody got inducted twice. Flair going in as himself and then going in as part of the Four Horsemen. Next up, 2013. To me, this was the best Hall of Fame ceremony. To me, this was the most star-studded, and the speeches were really excellent from start to finish. You had Mick Foley kicking it off, and his speech went on, I think, like 30 minutes. Mick Foley talking about everything, and that moment when Foley mentioned that he had never beaten Chris Jericho, and then Chris Jericho comes up on the stage and Foley does the elbow and pins him. That was great, and then it ending with Santa Claus. Really nice touch, something different for a Hall of Fame speech. Mick Foley was great. And you had Trish Stratus, who delivered another great Hall of Fame speech, really enjoyable. And Bob Backlund coming out there for the train wreck speech of the night. I mean, that was something else. And then, of course, Bruno Sammartino, the headliner, arguably the most deserving person to go into the WWE Hall of Fame, the guy that was the top draw, selling out Madison Square Garden almost 200 times. A major superstar, and something that was long overdue, something that people thought would never happen because Bruno was on bad terms with WWE for so many years. So for him to go in, this was awesome. And I also wanted to mention Booker T, another great Hall of Fame speech, and Stevie Ray doing a good job with the induction for Booker T. So in my opinion, 2013 is the best Hall of Fame ceremony, the best Hall of Fame class. And I would recommend checking out the whole thing if you haven't seen it. And then finally, the 2014 Hall of Fame, which I'm sure most of you have seen because this was the first one that was broadcasted in its entirety on the WWE Network. For a lot of these Hall of Fame ceremonies, maybe 1 hour would be shown on the USA Network a few days after the ceremony, and they would be heavily edited. So now with the network, people were able to go and watch all these ceremonies from start to finish. But for 2014, this was the first one people were able to watch the whole thing live. And it was a good ceremony. Wasn't one of the best ones, but it was still very good. You had the Ultimate Warrior, another guy like Bruno that people never thought would go into the Hall of Fame, but he finally agreed to do it. And the Ultimate Warrior coming out there and, very good speech. But then the whole situation with him passing away 2 days after the Hall of Fame ceremony, just very much a downer. But at least he got to go out there and make peace with everybody and have his final moment. Very emotional to watch. And then you had Jake the Snake going in, another very emotional speech from Jake Roberts, and him going in is very deserving, especially after everything he's been through and getting his act together, cleaning himself up. You had Lita going in. Her speech kind of dragged a bit. I mean, she went out there and she was talking forever. And then you had Paul Bearer going in, which was very fitting. Paul Bearer, big part of Undertaker's career. And then Razor Ramon, same thing as Jake Roberts. And then you had Mr. T going in. And I should talk about, I haven't really mentioned the celebrity inductions into the Hall of Fame. Mr. T's, I mean, we all remember it, him coming out there and just basically talking about his mother. He loved his mother very much. On Mother's Day, President's Day, Valentine's Day, Christmas Day, Easter Day, he loved his mother. So that was another entertaining train wreck Hall of Fame speech. And they actually had to cut him off because he was talking for too long. The celebrity wing of the Hall of Fame, very controversial. It feels like it's just political maneuvering by WWE. Some of them you can justify going in. I mean, even though Mr. T's speech wasn't really what people were expecting, Mr. T is very deserving because he was crucial in the success of WrestleMania 1. His celebrity helped generate interest in WWE and WrestleMania. Mike Tyson, despite his personal life, Mike Tyson was a big part in helping WWE regain the lead in the Monday Night Wars, and he was a huge boost to WWE during that period leading up to WrestleMania 14. There's no question Mike Tyson was a difference maker. I mean, Steve Austin was going to be a huge star one way or another, but Mike Tyson really helped. Some of these guys, I don't know about them going into the Hall of Fame. Drew Carey, I mean, what did he do besides come into the Royal Rumble and just stand there and offer money to Kane? I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. But yeah, Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump was involved in the production of WrestleMania 4 and WrestleMania 5, of course, at Trump Plaza, Atlantic City. But then he was involved in WrestleMania 23 with the Battle of the Billionaires, which was the most purchased WWE pay-per-view of all time. So you could argue for Donald Trump to be in there. I mean, the Hall of Fame, with the celebrity wing, it's just a way to generate publicity. So whatever. I try not to get bothered by it too much. Arnold Schwarzenegger going in this year, I don't know about that. But, I mean, I'm sure his speech will be entertaining, but I don't know. And, this year's class, Randy Savage, very long overdue. He should have gone in a long time ago. And the thing that really sucks is that he's not around to do his speech. And, Hulk Hogan inducting him is controversial. Some people don't like it. Some people think it is the right decision because they were involved together in their careers so much. Rikishi and the Bushwhackers, kind of iffy for me. Bushwhackers had a tremendous run as the Sheep Herders for many years before WWE. But when it comes right down to it, people remember the Bushwhackers as the WWE comedy opening match tag team. Rikishi, he had a solid run, but he never really got past the mid-card. And, when he did get a push as Rikishi, as the guy that ran down Steve Austin, the angle was essentially a flop. Alundra Blaze going in, I agree with that. I think she's deserving. She was, a very skilled female wrestler. She had a run in the AWA. She had a run in WWE. She had a run in WCW. She was successful in various promotions for several years. Larry Zbyszko, I feel, is deserving. He was a big star during the territorial era. And then during the Monday Night Wars, he was a big star again. Not just doing the announcing, but being involved with the NWO and Scott Hall. And Fujinami was a big star in Japan. Little surprised he's going in just because he hasn't done anything in WWE besides being the WWF Junior Heavyweight Champion way back in the day. Overall, I think it's a decent class, but I think it could be better. Kevin Nash going in as Diesel, I think is good. But to me, it would have been better if Randy Savage was still alive to be part of it. But it's still, I'm still very happy Randy Savage is going in. And of course, Connor the Crusher being the first fan to go into the Hall of Fame. I would definitely like to see more of those kind of people go in. Fans, people that really dedicate themselves to WWE. That would be a cool extension of the Hall of Fame. And, as the Warrior brought up, the Jimmy Miranda Award, inducting more people from behind the scenes. That's what I would like to see in future Hall of Fame induction ceremonies. I want to see guys like Jim Johnston go into the Hall of Fame. People love him, people hate him. I'd like to see Kevin Dunn go into the Hall of Fame. And more behind-the-scenes people, do something to spice it up. Because my concern is WWE is going to run out of top-tier talent to put into the Hall of Fame. And you can have a variety. You can have somebody from behind the scenes. You can have a fan go in. You can do the celebrity wing, whatever. But, when it comes down to the wrestlers, you really got to stick to the cream of the crop. You got to stick to the top guys. And, eventually I feel they're going to run out if they're not more careful about how they put together these ceremonies in future years. So there you have it for my thoughts on the WWE Hall of Fame. It is what it is. Some people like it. Some people feel it doesn't have enough credibility and it's too watered down. Let me know what you guys think about the WWE Hall of Fame and previous years, as well as the 2015 Hall of Fame. And who would you like to see in future Hall of Fame ceremonies? I mentioned guys from behind the scenes like Jim Johnston. I'd love to see Owen Hart go into the Hall of Fame. And there's plenty of guys, Undertaker will go in sooner than later. Same thing with Sting. The Rock will go in. They still have some big names to come. Let me know what you think, what names you would like to see in the Hall of Fame, whether it be singles competitors or tag teams or factions. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. And stay tuned to NoDQ.com for WrestleMania 31 coverage.